Good morning. We welcome everyone to Seeger Chapel on the campus of Milligan University. Certainly welcome to all, but especially to our guests who are here as part of the Blue Ridge Undergraduate Research Conference. We gather together every Thursday in this place to share a time of worship. And today is a special day because it reminds us that worship need not be confined to a single hour of the week, nor a single building on our campus, but we can express worship in many ways. And one of the ways it will be expressed across our campus today will be through academic pursuits. And so we appreciate and celebrate everyone's work. And we acknowledge that the opportunity to do that is a gift from God. We trust that everybody will have a meaningful day. And now to present some worshipful music, Milligan's a cappella ensemble Heritage.
Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Day is breaking in my soul. Oh, where are our dear fathers? Oh, where are our dear fathers? They are in the valley praying. Day is breaking in my soul. Oh, where are our dear mothers? Oh, where are our dear mothers? They have gone to heaven a shouting, shouting. Day is breaking in my soul. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Day is breaking in my soul. In articulo mortis caelitus mihi vires. Nearer, my God, to thee, nearer to thee, e'en though it be a cross that raiseth me. There let the way appear, steps unto heaven, all that thou sentest me, my mercy give.
Excelsior, excelsior, excelsior.
Still all my song shall be nearer, my God, to thee. Nearer, my God, to thee. Nearer to thee. Though like the wanderer, the sun gone down, darkness behold thee, my rest astone.
Excelsior, excelsior, excelsior.
Angels to beckon me, nearer, my God, to thee. Nearer, my God, to thee. Nearer to thee. If on joyful wing, cleaving the sky, sun, moon, and stars forgot, upward I fly. Excelsior.
Hello, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to everyone here who is a guest of the Blue Ridge Conference. We last hosted the conference 20 years ago, and we started the tradition of adding a keynote lecture. And this year we decided that we would want to include that keynote lecture into the chapel time so that all students could benefit from the lecture. And I think that any student today can benefit from the topic today. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker today. Dr. Ron Kastens is a Milligan alum and also the Dean of Emmanuel Christian Seminary at Milligan. His scholarship is on preparing men and women for the ministry in practical ways. In addition, Dr. Kastens is an ordained pastor and provides training on personal development and the Enneagram. His talk today will be on the importance and challenges of self-awareness. So please help me welcome Dr. Kastens.
Well, I want to thank Dr. Drennan and the Blue Ridge Undergraduate Research Conference for this invitation to speak with you today. And for those presenting research today, we are grateful for the time and effort that you have put in that will bless the lives and the learning of others. And we wish you all the best as you present throughout the day. Several years ago, I heard a speaker give a presentation on humility, and he opened by pointing out the difficulty and concern about speaking on the topic of humility. Whenever someone has the nerve to speak on humility, are they communicating that they have humility all figured out and they've got it conquered? And of course, if that's what they're communicating, then that's evidence that they don't have humility all figured out, of course. And likewise, I feel similar daring to address the topic of self-awareness. Am I giving the impression that I have this all figured out and conquered? And that would prove, of course, that I am not self-aware after all. Therefore, I want to be clear up front that I do not have this all figured out. I have plenty of ongoing work that I'm doing in this area. And yet, even with that awkwardness of addressing this topic, of daring to talk about it, we have to talk about it. Self-awareness is that important It's that important. And before getting into why self-awareness really is that important, what are we even talking about? What is self-awareness? Psychologist Daniel Goleman wrote that self-awareness means having a deep understanding of one's emotions, strengths, weaknesses, needs, and drives. And here the focus is on depth, however, others speak of clarity. Brooks defines self-awareness as a clear understanding of one's character, strengths, weaknesses, beliefs, motivations, and emotions. See, a self-aware person is alert to what they are feeling and thinking. They can process their emotions and not allow their emotions to drive inappropriate behavior. A self-aware person is self-aware to the degree that they're attentive to their feelings and thoughts, and they're in control of their behavioral choices. A self-aware person is mindful of the impact of their behavior on the people around them, and they can adjust accordingly. Self-awareness, as I'm defining it today, is the ability to clearly see one's emotions and thoughts, gifts and limitations, and the impact of one's actions upon others. It's the ability to look in the mirror of our lives and see clearly. And it is very, very important. The long-lasting ripple effects of self-awareness, it reaches into and impacts every area of our lives. As Goleman points out, self-awareness is the first component of emotional intelligence. And of course, without it, there's really no use in moving on to the other components. Self-regulation, which is Goleman's second component, is challenging enough, but it's nearly impossible without self-awareness. Ignorance is very tough to overcome. It is very tough to overcome. You can attempt to comb your hair in front of a portrait, but you'll be much more successful if you're standing in front of a mirror. Psychologist Tasha Urich writes that when we see ourselves clearly, we are more confident and more creative, we make sounder decisions, we build stronger relationships, and we communicate more effectively. Self-awareness enhances your ability to do many valuable things. And that alone should be reason enough that we would pursue self-awareness, yet she goes on. We're less likely to lie and cheat and steal. In other words, the greater our self-awareness, it will most likely strengthen our moral and ethical behavior. Self-awareness is also very beneficial for students, and I'm sure you're excited to know that. Students have shown that self-awareness will increase motivation, self-evaluation, and improve academic achievement as well. And that is a big payoff for you right now as college students. The more self-aware you are, the better you will perform academically. And beyond college, many of you will get jobs and start careers. Your resume may get you your first job at a company or an organization, but it is often your emotional intelligence that will determine where things go from there. Dr. Urich writes that with greater self-awareness, we are better workers who get more promotions. We're more effective leaders with more satisfied employees. Self-awareness is significant in the workplace because a person is able to notice his strengths and weaknesses and set goals for behavior that can be improved upon. Psychologist Michael Walton stated emphatically that self-awareness matters a great deal, and executives who remain unaware of the impact they have on others are unlikely to fulfill their full career potential. And finally, raising self-awareness has been shown to increase kindness in our behavior toward other people. By and large, the more self-aware that you and I are, the better we will treat one another. And as our self-awareness goes up, so does our attitude and our kindness. We're just more enjoyable to be around. You see, self-awareness is simply that important. But conversely, low self-awareness has an impact on the low personal responsibility of students in various aspects of life. For instance, low self-awareness made nursing students pay less attention to the importance of empathy with patients when they were developing therapeutic relationships. DePaul University business professors Eric Dyerdorf and Robert Rubin noted that when individuals were less self-aware, the teams they were a part of at work suffered substantially. Teams with less self-aware individuals made worse decisions. They engaged in less coordination and showed less conflict management in the workplace. You see, when we look carefully into the mirror of our lives, there's a tremendous benefit to our lives and to those around us, to our academic pursuits and our ability to thrive in the workplace. And yet, when we ignore the mirror of our lives, when we ignore it, there are negative consequences personally, socially, academically, professionally. You and I are either growing into our future or we are regressing into it. There is no neutral. There is no marching in place. Well, even though self-awareness is critical, the degree of importance is equaled by its degree of difficulty. Cultivating self-awareness is hard. Dr. Urich writes that even though most people believe they are self-aware, self-awareness truly is a rare quality. She says, we estimate that only 10 to 15% of the people we studied actually fit the criteria. And this is similar to the findings of Professors Dyerdorf and Rubin. It says we are simply not very self-aware. And even for those of us who think we are, we're not as self-aware as we think. Take a person who talks too much in a committee meeting or a class discussion or perhaps a book club or even a meal out with friends, all the while unaware that they are dominating the conversation. Or consider a person who always steers the conversation back to themselves. Whatever the topic, they have a way of just bringing the conversation back to them. We see a lack of self-awareness in the person who often answers questions that are asked of someone else in the room. You see it in the person who moves into your personal space when they talk with you, the close talker from Seinfeld days. You see it in the person who ignores emails and deadlines and forces everyone else on the team to scramble just to communicate with them and even to get work accomplished. You see it in the person who does not pick up on emotional cues and uses humor when someone else in the group, in the room, is hurting emotionally. And even more so when they just keep it up and just plow right on through those emotional cues. See, the reality is I've been guilty of many of those things at one time or another in my life because self-awareness is just hard. It's hard. Last year, one of my colleagues and I were traveling to a conference in the Midwest. And as we were boarding the airplane, the woman right behind me, she was obviously impatient because she kept bumping into me with her luggage as we're trying to board the plane. And I was getting more and more frustrated all the way down the aisle of this plane. She's bumping into me with her luggage. And I wanted to turn around. I wanted to turn around and ask her, do you recognize how your impatience is running over the rest of us as we're trying to board the plane? Are you that unaware? I mean, I wanted to ask her this, but I didn't. But by the time I got to my seat, I was so worked up internally over how unaware this woman was that I turned to my colleague next to me and I snapped at him. And it was crazy. It was crazy. All the time I'm walking down the aisle so bothered and by this unaware woman, yet I was unaware of what was going on inside of me, and then it came out at a friend. Self-awareness is difficult. And the moment we think we have it all figured out, we are fooling ourselves. We're fooling ourselves. And what can make self-awareness even more difficult is our life experience, our education, and our expertise. One psychologist discovered that people do not always learn from experience, that expertise does not help people root out false information, and that seeing ourselves as highly experienced can keep us from doing our homework, can keep us from seeking disconfirming evidence and questioning our assumptions. And just as experience can lead to a false sense of confidence about our performance, it can also make us overconfident about our level of self-knowledge. We think we have it all figured out. We think we know. But the moment we think we have arrived at self-awareness is probably proof that we have not. It's very hard. And I want to give you two significant reasons why I think self-awareness is so difficult. First, self-awareness is hard because you and I have such a limited perspective. We all have a subjective view of our lives in this world. Ask an NFL running back about his performance in a game. And from his perspective, it's easy to blame the lineman for missing their blocking assignment, to blame the quarterback for calling the wrong play, and so on and so on. And the same is probably true for all NFL players, I suppose. And because of this, football teams will hire coaches to help players see more objectively, to help them provide perspective. Beyond this, NFL teams also videotape games so that players and coaches can sit and watch those games together. And this, of course, increases the objectivity even more. When you watch the video and it's clear to you, oh my goodness, I am running the wrong route, it's really hard to blame that on someone else, right? It's there for all to see in the video footage. Both the coaches and the video footage expand the perspective of the players. Otherwise, they are simply too close to the action. And the same is true for us when it comes to self-awareness. In and of ourselves, we have a limited perspective, which makes self-awareness very difficult. When Dardorf and Rubin talk about people being less self-aware, what they're referring to in their article is this gap that exists between how a person sees themselves and how other people see and experience them. With no external data, the results of self-knowledge assessments, the things that you and I might do in and of ourselves to grow in self-awareness, those things, we presume them to be accurate. However, instead, they may be reinforcing inaccurate perceptions of ourselves. You and I need feedback from other people in our lives to check our view of ourselves with what other people see and experience. And unless we do something to increase our perspective, we will simply increase our knowledge of that which very well may be inaccurate. Perspective is even more difficult the higher one climbs in an organization. The more power one has, Dr. Urich noted that the more power a leader holds, the more likely they are to overestimate their skills and abilities. The higher a leader climbs in an organization, there are fewer people above them who can provide candid feedback. And the more power a leader wields, the less comfortable people will be to give them good, candid feedback. Just say it this way, it was easier for me to get candid feedback as an associate pastor than it was as a senior pastor. Now, it was super easy to get feedback as a youth pastor. I mean, everybody wants to tell the youth pastor what's what, right? But not the senior pastor. Our experiences are subjective. We all live subjective lives. We have blind spots. And on top of that, merely getting older is not going to solve the problem, as life experience, expertise, and authority can often stand in our way of growing in self-awareness. All these things and more contribute to a limited perspective, and it makes self-awareness difficult. Second, pursuing self-awareness is also difficult because it's painful. It's just painful. Taking the time and effort to look into the mirror of our lives can be painful, because when we look in that mirror, we see things. We see, for instance, words that have been said to us. People say things like, "You're dumb," "You're clumsy." People tell us that we're stupid or that we're ugly. They might tell us you're too fat or too skinny, maybe too tall or too short. All of us have had words spoken to us that are there staring at us when we dare look into the mirror of our lives. But not just words that are spoken to us. All of us have words that we've also said to ourselves. We've said things like, "You're not good enough," right? "You're not good enough." We've said, "You're not wanted." "Nobody wants me." We've said, my voice doesn't matter. I'm not special. And all of us have said things like that and other things into our lives, and we see it day after day after day. But on top of that, when we look in the mirror of our lives, we also see and notice that we've made mistakes, right? We're not perfect. We haven't lived perfect lives. We've made mistakes. Maybe you're looking at your life and you realize, oh my goodness, I cheated on a test. Or perhaps I lost my temper. Maybe at a family member or my parents or a friend. Or maybe I lied to a friend. Maybe I was fired from a job that I had. Maybe I wrecked a car and caused a lot of damage and maybe injured someone. And so even every time we look into the mirror of our lives, we see these things that we've done and we can't get away from them. We can't ignore them. They're there staring us in the face. Or maybe in addition to that, there are events and there are circumstances that have just happened in our lives. Things that have impacted us, and we still see them when we look into the mirror of our lives. We look and remember that, you know what, I was picked last for kickball when I was in elementary school every time we went out to play. Or maybe people didn't invite me to their birthday party when I was in third grade. Everybody else got invited, but I didn't. Or maybe my heart was broken by a boyfriend or girlfriend, and I see that happened. Maybe I didn't get an academic award that I was hoping to get, maybe in high school or maybe in college. Or maybe I was passed over for a promotion at work, or maybe I interviewed for a job that I didn't get, and we see that when we look into the mirror of our lives. We see all of those things and even more when you and I look into the mirror of our lives, and it is painful to see. And not only that, on top of all of that, there's the trauma that some people experience. Because trauma happens in life, and some of us experience it, don't we? Some of us more than others, but trauma happens. Trauma happens in our lives, such as the extreme illness or death of a parent, maybe growing up through the fallout of a divorce, maybe growing up in a difficult foster home, or perhaps an international student who is here studying in the U.S. because violence and war have ravaged the land they call home. Maybe someone whose home has been plagued with addiction and you've grown up with that. Or maybe someone who's a survivor of physical or sexual abuse. There's all kinds of trauma. And if it has happened to us, we see it when we look into the mirror of our lives. See, when we look in the mirror, every one of us sees things that we wish we did not see. It's painful and we'd rather not look. And some of us, we just close our eyes and we stop looking altogether. But others of us, we try to cover it up. We try to find things that we can do in our lives that will cover up what we see. Maybe we try to cover it up with academic achievement, maybe artistic or athletic accomplishment. Perhaps we try to cover it up with friendships or a romantic relationship. And then we grow up and get into our careers and we try to cover it up with things like money and success and climbing the corporate ladder and cars and vacations and all kinds of things to cover it up so we don't have to see it. But here's the thing, it never goes away. It's still there, and it is impacting our self-awareness or lack thereof. And until we have the courage to look into it and see it and appropriately process it and work through it and make peace with it, it will continue to limit our self-awareness, our growth, and our flourishing. So, what are some steps that you and I can take towards self-awareness? Well, first, I encourage you to learn about yourself and your tendencies. Explore personality tools such as Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram or StrengthsFinder or Berkman or the DISC profile. Tools such as these are not perfect, and they're not going to tell you everything about yourself. They're not the final word on you or self-awareness, but they can give you tendencies to look for, and they can give you language to describe what might be difficult to put into words. Next, I would encourage you to begin a practice begin to practice a review of the day. As you lay your head on your pillow at night, think back over your day. What were the key conversations that you had that day, the interactions that you had? Were there any arguments that you were a part of in your day? What was happening? What were you feeling? What were you thinking? Where was your body holding tension? Were there any emotional spikes or crevices throughout your day? Any time throughout the day that your emotions went way high or way low, and ask yourself the same questions. What was happening in those moments? What about my thoughts and feelings, and what about my body during those moments? Pay attention to your day and what was going on inside of you and how your actions were impacting the lives around you. Another helpful practice could be journaling. When you ask and respond to similar kinds of questions, but you do it on paper. For some people, journaling can be a very useful tool because processing it on paper allows you to see it, and even years later, you can look back on it, and you can look for patterns and tendencies, and you can even see personal growth in your life. And for those of you who are people of faith, when you do a review of the day or you journal, it's very helpful to do it with God, asking the Spirit of God to guide you. You can also develop the habit of what Peter Scazzaro calls an emotional selfie. We've all taken selfies with our phones, and he talks about an emotional selfie. And the idea is whenever you feel upset or anxious or angry or overwhelmed, when you feel triggered in any way, pause in that moment and take what he calls an emotional selfie. Ask yourself many of the same kinds of questions. What is happening? How am I feeling? What am I thinking? Where's my body holding tension in this moment? It's very similar to a review of the day, but instead of waiting until bedtime, you pause any time throughout your day and put a finger on the pulse of your life, and you check in with yourself, an emotional selfie. Another helpful tool for building self-awareness is what I call post-game feedback. When I was a senior pastor of a church in New Hampshire, after meetings that I was in, I would occasionally go to different individuals on my staff, and just the two of us, and I would ask them questions. I would ask them things such as, did I talk too much during that meeting? Did I allow other people a chance to say and contribute? How was my listening during the meeting? Were there any points in the meeting where I powered up inappropriately in the meeting? Did I talk down to people? Is there anything you think I need to hear coming out of that meeting that will help me be a better leader? That's a post-game feedback. And you can do that as well. If you're part of a group on campus where you go to school, maybe it's a student association meeting, a student government meeting, maybe it's FCA, maybe it's your sports team, maybe it's an RA meeting or a club that you're a part of on your campus. Anytime you're participating in a meeting, you can follow up with people who were in the meeting to get some post-game feedback. And you have to assure them, of course, that you really do want to know, right? I really do want to hear what you have to say. And when people are honest with you, if you get defensive or if you make excuses, then that's the last time they will ever be honest with you. If you don't receive it well, they will only tell you the truth one time, just once. But think of this. What if you could get honest insights and feedback from coworkers and friends and classmates who truly are committed to your success, and they get to see you in action on your best days and your worst days? Ask them, get feedback, get post-game feedback. Similarly, another way to grow in self-awareness is to proactively involve friends and family and coworkers and ask them questions. How do you receive me? Am I coming across to you in ways that I may not be aware of? What would you tell me if you knew I wouldn't get mad or defensive? What is it that I need to hear? In what ways do you know that I'm anxious before I know that I'm anxious? Do you feel I'm inattentive, or do you feel I am attentive and listening to you when we're in a conversation, or am I just thinking of what I'm going to say next? Am I present in meetings, or do you sometimes sense that I'm distant? Do you sense I'm concerned about you and your life, or am I often just concerned about my own agenda? and myself. And give them permission to speak candidly to you. Assure them that you truly do want to know, and tell them that you'll do your best to receive it well. And then to ensure that they will be candid with you in future talks, just take it. Whatever it is they tell you, just take it. You can reflect on it later on and sort out the good from the bad, but in the moment, take it. And then thank them. Thank them. Think of how much faster you could address the unintended consequences of your actions if you were surrounded by people motivated to give you useful feedback. It'd be like gold for us, wouldn't it? Be like gold. And finally, last suggestion I'll give you is to utilize a mentor, a counselor, or perhaps a spiritual director. It could be when you walk over to the mirror of your life, you will need help looking into it. You may need someone to stand beside you and to look in the mirror with you, and that is okay. That is okay. That may be a trained counselor or therapist, and if so, I would encourage you to find and involve that person in your life. There's some trauma that we just need help working through, and that's okay. I found a counselor to be very helpful in the various times of my life. So if that's you, find and utilize that person. Or maybe mentors can also help you grow in self-awareness. Maybe it's a current professor or professional in the field you're going into. Could be the coach of your sports team. Could be an RA in your dorm. Could be an upperclassman you look up to. Whoever it is for you, find a mentor, and the conversation can be very simple. It's like, hey, I'm trying to grow in self-awareness. What do you see in me that I may not be aware of? And if you do see anything in me going forward, would you point it out to me? And again, if you're a person of faith, consider working with a spiritual director, as they can help you grow in self-awareness and many other things. But there are things that you and I can do to grow in self-awareness. I bought a used car back in August, and it's a 2019 Jeep Cherokee. It's pretty amazing. It's my first car ever that has a backup camera. I mean, that is a really cool thing, really cool. And not only that, when I put my car in reverse, the side mirrors tilt down and in so I can see what's low and behind me as I back up. It's really awesome. And if a car pulls up beside me on the freeway, there's a little yellow triangle that comes into my side view mirror that lets me know someone is there. And if I put my turn signal on to pass on the freeway and my car senses another car right next to me, it like beeps at me. I mean, that's awesome, right? That's such an amazing invention. And this means, of course, right? Doesn't this mean that I can back my car up and I can drive for hours and hours and hours on the freeway and never turn my head to the side again, ever at all, right? That's what that means? That I can always keep my eyes facing forward when I drive? Yeah, right. That's not a good idea, just so you know. The truth is, those things were invented because blind spots are real when you drive a car. They're real. Those things were invented because so many people had car accidents caused by what they could not see. Those things were invented because when so much is at stake, you need to do everything you can to see clearly. I am grateful for all of those inventions that help me see in my blind spots. And I still turn my head and make a quick glance when I'm changing lanes and making turns, etc. I want to do everything I can do to see clearly. Self-awareness is hard. It's very difficult. But the more you and I can grow in self-awareness, the more our personal, relational, and professional lives will absolutely flourish. And there are things we can do to grow in self-awareness. And it's not about being perfect. It's not about being perfect. It's about growing and doing better. But growth will only come when you and I have the courage to look in the mirror. Thank you.
All right, before we dismiss, I've got a couple of announcements for you. I'm sure Dr. Kastens will come down front too if you have any questions for him as well. But I want to make a couple of announcements about lunch. Students, if you're registered for the conference and indicated your lunch preferences, you're going to leave the chapel, go out these doors, and go down the hill toward the student center where there's the grill where your lunch is going to be waiting for you there. If you're a faculty or staff member, your lunch is going to be at the library waiting for you. And if you're not part of the conference, students, you might know that the grill's going to be a little busier today, a little more chaotic, so you might want to go to the cafeteria to eat lunch instead. I would like to invite everyone to also come and join us at the conference at 12:45 today over in Durthick. So you're dismissed. Go in peace.